This is another episode of the Mindful Runner podcast where we speak with participants from the Macmac 200 miler, a really tough race, probably the toughest foot race in Sydney in Africa. Today we're joined by Evan van Beek, a man who's no stranger to the course. He has stopped running once or twice. He's gone on to win the race. So we should get lots of good insight from Evan today. Evan, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's go back to that first one, 22. You ran it, you DNF'd it. Talk us through that one.
Let's just take a couple of steps back, and where I came from is, and why I DNF'd is in 2017. I did my first ultra, the Magalies Monster 50k, and after that, immediately the same year, I did the UTCT 100. Then I thought, that's the ultimate. That's it. I've done it all. And then I saw a guy on Strava, you might know him, Benny Roo. I saw he did this manga thing, 400k, and I'm like, bro, you're mal. And then I took a break, a couple of years. In 2019, then I signed up for the manga. So that was my third race ever, and I completed it. And what I got on the manga was, at every aid station, you get like a full plate meal served up for you every 50 k's or so, and a stash of supplements, gels, bars, whatever you want. So when I entered the Macmac 200 mile, I thought it's going to be the same. I'm going to be served a massive meal and supplements galore, and my feet's going to be rubbed from physios. And we started to fast. I mean, I went out too hard. We nearly went out on Roan's record pace, me and Henk. And day 2, I started vomiting because I had new supplements on the route from the organizers that I don't know. Yeah, just went downhill from there. That's basically it. And then I DNF'd, I think, on 100 k's or something like that. A bitter pill to swallow.
But that's the ones you learn the most from.
Yes. The biggest thing for me also in that race was the mind games. As soon as I started vomiting and couldn't keep stuff down, my mind played tricks on me and telling me what's happening, I'm sick, I'm going to die. So I immediately stopped.
The mind does weird things to you. And every time we speak to somebody, there was another trick. Somebody's mind played on them when they DNF'd. It's crazy how that works. Bounce back 2023. And you won the race.
Oh, yeah.
What changed? What did you do differently?
So what happened is in 23, I actually knew the course was like, I knew what was waiting for me. So I wouldn't say it was easy, but I actually did a couple of trail races also in between. And so I learned the aid stations and how it works, and that you need to take your own supplements that works for you. So it was easier, I would say. But yeah, hard work paid off.
And winning that, did it feel the way you imagined it would?
Look, winning it is a bonus. It feels great, feels amazing. You feel on top of the world and you're the best. But it's short-lived also. It's call it a one-night stand. You've got that winning feeling, and as soon as you realize it's not actually about winning the race, it's about the adventure. That's why I'm doing this. It's for the adventure. I like being out in the woods, in the mountains, exploring new paths, stuff like that. So the win was great, yes, but there's more to it than winning it. Okay, cool.
In that year when you won, what stands out for you the most? Was it mentally, physically? What comes to mind when you think about that in the way you prepared?
What stands out the most is, especially in the Macmac, I've got a secret spot I stop every year. It's that highest point on the mountain just after Stables Hut, where the wind blows every time and it's cold and dark. So I normally stop there for 5 to 10 minutes and just soak up what I'm doing and just hearing the wind in the grass. And then I thank God for my talent and everything I have, and my family and friends, and just have this moment on the route. What you normally don't have it, because you're always chasing times and cutoffs or records or whatever you chase. You never sit down and really soak up what's happening. So that's my standout moment every time I'm there at Macmac.
You have just given me a new secret weapon. That is absolutely awesome. I love that. I'm doing that for sure. Like, it's going to be having my Eden time. I'm doing it.
Do it. Do it.
Watching you run when I've been supporting the event as well. What's always noticeable to me is your family support. From the time that we are checking in our gear to the time you're finishing the race, your wife, your daughters, they're there backing you. How important is that to you?
That's massive, eh? I always say I can't go without them. And as soon as I do a race without them, it's a shit show. Because my wife's been there since my cycling days. I've been cycling semi-professional, and she knows what am I physically and mentally or capable of, and she also knows, and even the kids, they know what to say and when to say it. Because saying to me, "Are you okay? Do you feel okay? What's happening? Why are you behind? Or why are you in front?" Or that breaks me. She needs to say good stuff. You're killing it. Stuff like that, you know. And they know it. That's why I always take them with and use them as a pillar to keep me upright.
When you do have people supporting you, people in the aid stations, what they need to be doing doesn't matter how bad you look. They need to say exactly that. You're looking great. You're looking good. Keep going. Everything's fine. You're strong. Doesn't matter how you look or what the reality is. You want positive energy from those people.
Exactly. They need to feed your mind with positive stuff.
Yeah, exactly. How do you find balance? I mean, you have a family, a business to run, you have all these things going on, and we know training for something like this takes a lot of time. How do you balance that time?
Well, I've been doing this since school days, all the endurance sport. So my family knows me. I'm out in the field or in the mountains or wherever. So it's not uncommon for them to not see me the whole day. But yeah, you need a balance. I mean, you can't take Saturday and Sunday the whole day. You need to sometimes be present. And it's tough. I mean, a lot of times I miss the gymnastics competition or the piano competitions and stuff like that from the kids. So I tend to not do all the races because I've got family matters, and also it's very expensive. I try and keep my family first actually and jiggle around that. So, well, and also I work flexi time, so I can go for long runs actually during school hours. So that helps.
Let's go back to 2024. It didn't go well for you. You started that race and then you stopped at Macmahon. What happened during that run?
So I tend to get sick before races. I need to look into that. I always get sick. When my training peaks out, I get sick. And this time around, just stuck. I had this massive cough, like phlegm, boiling cough. Even the day before, at the start, I had this massive, ugly cough. And I was doing a nebulizer right before the start. So my mindset was also not right because I knew I was sick and I wasn't actually supposed to start. But still, I'm there. You know us. We always give it a try. And then outside of Towerbos on the top of the mountain, I felt terrible. My heart was racing and I haven't even started really running and felt dizzy, and it just felt that I'm not doing the right thing with my body. And then I thought, okay, well, it's normal to feel this crap. Just walk it off. And I walked basically the whole route to Stables Hut, and there Elof and Frikkie and Sean and all those guys motivated me and said, just go, man. You know them. And I went out, but again, I felt terrible. Like weak, sick, no power, struggling to walk even. So I decided, no, call it quits and be safe. And that's it. It was bad feeling the FOMO, but I had a ball of a time actually when I stopped, because then I actually experienced what the aid stations really are, and the vibe and the joy the people are having. So I actually joined Elof in his cruiser. We went to all the aid stations, drank a lot of beer and rum, and I can't remember everything, but wow, it was a good time actually. Put that behind me now, and it's the next year.
Yeah, sounds like you made a really sensible call. What impact has that had? I mean, you were there, you were the defending champion, and then you didn't finish. What impact has that had in your preparation now and your mindset?
Well, I learned that nothing is a given. You can't expect to just pitch up and wing it. As soon as you do that, it's trouble. The hard lesson I learned was rather don't start. I mean, there's going to be many more Mac races, but there's not many more Ibens. So that's one of the big lessons I learned. And yeah, I also experienced what Frikkie and Elof is doing. I mean, where in the country do you see race organizers chasing guys in the woods just to support them and being at every aid station and then back at the finish welcoming all the guys finishing from the small races right up to the 200-mile race every night right through. I don't know whenever they sleep. I never see them sleep. So my mindset going into this year's race is a bit different. I'm not chasing the win anymore because been there, done that. I'm not chasing time anymore because I think I'm not in the right state because I'm sick again, guess what? But I've done the mileage. I did Comrades also, and that was one tough race.
Yeah.
That's actually more tough than the Mac 200 mile, I would say, on the body. It's more taxing. It's very ANA.
Yes.
Hopefully strong, eh? Because I've been there.
You've seen all angles. So looking ahead, you think you're going to run Mac again after this? I know this. I ask everyone those questions. Like we haven't even got to this one yet. But do you see yourself doing it again?
For sure. I'm never going to miss Mac ever. That's a race for me. People are feeling about, let's say, Cocodona 250 or something. It's like a community and you want to go back, even if it's the shorter distances or even just to support. So I'll always do Mac. But don't tell Frikkie and Elof because they will keep me to it.
Over the years, through all these experiences, what kind of runner do you see yourself becoming? I mean, we've spoken almost briefly about this. You seem to have moved past that I need to be competitive or I need to be competing. Not that you don't need to be competitive, but you seem to move past that I need to be competing point. What kind of runner do you think you're becoming?
Well, I think I've got the fast bait. So I'm still a guy that wants to do the longer distances. I'm really intrigued by the 200-mile and the 240, 250, Cocodona and the Moab, and those type of races. So I actually entered the Longmore 200 also for the first time. But I'm more of a diesel type of runner, diesel engine, because I think I lost my speed way back when I did that manga. I mean, I think that broke me to a slower runner, but more of a fast bait guy.
So slower, but more consistent, like you say, into that big diesel engine. You can just keep on going for days and days. Yeah, and I've got to admit, I'm also intrigued by the 250 and the what's next after this. What's the next distance? Where?
Yeah, even the 100-milers, the guys go so fast. I mean, that's even too fast for me.
Maybe that's the thing, though, is to go back and try and run a fast 100-miler. They are getting faster and faster. What advice would you give to somebody who has also DNF, somebody who's stopped in a race? Like, what's the best advice you can give somebody around how to handle that DNF after the fact? Right?
The best advice is to go back. Never leave it there. You need to go back and settle that score. And also take notes and tell yourself what happened. Why did you stop, and why did you feel the need to stop? Because 9 times out of the 10, you're gonna regret stopping. So you need a very good reason to stop, especially in a 200-mile race. I mean, it's a long way. If you feel sick, you need to stop and rest a little bit, and not stop and cancel yourself out of the race. So if you ever DNF'd out of a race, make notes and see what really happened and why did you stop. Of course, what happens is I see sometimes life gets tough in a race and you need to be soothed, or someone needs to tell you, you okay, you will make it.
Yeah.
And if you don't get that while you're in the mountains and the wind blows and the mist is thick and you feel like crying, it gets tough. And you just need to battle through those days. Why did you really stop? Was it that tough? Or no, were you sick or injured?
I had my own DNF, so I've been there, done that. But I find it fascinating because I don't think, even when you have a valid reason, like you're properly sick and you know that you're just doing more damage if you continue, you still come away feeling guilt. You still come away thinking, "But what if I'd done that? But maybe I could have just pushed a bit further. Maybe I could have gone on." It's hard to
Exactly.
step away and give yourself a break. Like in your instance, you pulled out for exactly the right reasons, but it's still got to be hard stepping back and going, "Oh, you did the right thing." It's like, yeah, okay. It doesn't feel so right now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a bad feeling.
So thanks for being so open about what happened to you, about your racing. I think a lot of people, we underestimate how many people watch the race. We underestimate how many people you have an impact on. Even people who have potentially never run in their lives and will never run are impacted by seeing the struggle, by seeing the overcoming and the drama of people not finishing, or the drama of you going in as a favorite and then not finishing. It impacts a lot more people than just you. And when you're out there on your own, plodding through the forest in the middle of the night in the mist, you don't necessarily get that into your mind enough. There are so many people watching. There are so many people rooting for you, cheering for you to finish, that I think it's an important thing to
Exactly.
keep in mind. I mean, I've been dot watching and yelling at people. As you watch the dots, you're shouting, "You're going off course. Evan, you're going off course."
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I've got many family members and friends that's there. I mean, I've been there. I started with a park run. I mean, Discovery Vitality forced me to do a park run every now and then to get my points. And so I dot watched everybody and just progressed from there on. And it's crazy actually how many people tell me that I'm a massive motivation for them. And I mean, it doesn't feel like you are motivating people, but they really say, "Look, you inspire me." Every time I see a mountain run or whatever, they like, "You inspire me." And I'm like, okay, well, there's one reason for me to keep on going. Eh?
Yeah, that's good motivation.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. I'm gonna